In Money Watch, a mass exodus of major international companies is underway in Russia. Several multinational companies are pulling out or suspending business in Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. The number of companies added to the list is growing by the hour. The decision to pull out comes as the sanctions from the West take a grip on the nation's economy. The ruble has tanked to record lows, forcing Russia's central bank to boost key interest rates to offset the losses. Joining us now for more on this is John Quelch. He is the dean of the Herbert Business School at the University of Miami. Dean Quelch, thank you for being with us. So is this exodus in response to the sanctions, or are reputational and financial risks of doing business in Russia simply too high right now?
Thanks, Tanya. So in some cases, such as Visa and MasterCard, the restrictions on foreign currency transactions that have been imposed by the EU and the US, et cetera, basically preclude these companies from doing any business in Russia. And accordingly, their withdrawal is, in a sense, de facto necessary because they just have no option. But in the case of the oil and gas companies, and you showed BP and Shell, also today Centrica, which is the British gas company, they have all essentially curtailed their investments, their joint venture investments in gas and petroleum projects with Russian state-owned entities such as Rosneft and Gazprom. And this is going to be extremely costly to BP and Shell. They're going to have to take significant write-downs by walking away from these particular projects. So there is pain here for some of these companies, and for others, it's just a political reality that they can't any longer do business in Russia.
As we mentioned earlier, the ruble is tanking. Russia is expected to face even additional sanctions. What does this withdrawal of these international businesses, some of you that you just spoke of, mean for the overall Russian economy? Because I know there are questions, too, about when they would actually really feel the weight of these sanctions.
So the withdrawal of these businesses, I think it's not just symbolic. It does have some impact. But in many respects, the Russian economy is quite a self-contained economy. And so the notion of these business withdrawals alone causing the Russian economy to tank, that's not the case. What is causing the Russian economy to tank is the collective willpower of the EU and the US, and indeed Switzerland as well, to essentially block access to Russia's foreign currency reserves, which President Putin had built up to around about 630 billion, but approximately half of these are no longer accessible. So that is where the difficulty arises for President Putin. It causes the ruble to tank. They've had to, as you know, double the interest rate to 20% to try and retain investments in rubles. That's probably not going to be sufficient. And potentially hyperinflation could plague Russia pretty soon. And that hyperinflation, of course, will reduce the purchasing power of ordinary Russians and cause considerable pain to the citizenry of Russia.
So, Dean Quelch, what about the oil and gas portion of this quagmire? Because, of course, that is really where the EU and the world did not want to have to draw the line. But now we are seeing a large number of oil and gas companies pulling out of Russia. How will that impact both energy costs moving forward for the rest of the world, namely Americans, and also how will that continue to impact the Russian economy?
So prior to the invasion, the EU was depending for 40% of its natural gas and around about 27% of its oil on exports out of Russia. And as you know, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline project was essentially curtailed, and that was going to further connect the EU, especially Germany, with Russia. Now, if you look at the current prices of Brent crude oil, it's up today. It's up to around about $106. But interestingly, natural gas prices are today below their November high. So what's been going on is that behind the scenes, the Western allies have been working on plans to facilitate more production from Saudi Arabia and from Qatar in the case of natural gas to try and make up for any shortfall in supplies coming out of Russia into the EU. The other thing that's noteworthy, if I may, is that while Russian banks have been cut off from the SWIFT international payment system, not every Russian bank has been cut off. And there are still a few banks through which purchases by the EU of Russian gas and oil can still be transacted. And so obviously the EU does not want to, given its dependency, does not want to completely cut off imports of energy supplies on which it depends from Russia. And they've been essentially trying to buy time to come up with alternative arrangements before getting into a position where those supplies potentially dry up. And of course, President Putin himself could block the exports of those oil and gas supplies, but that would, of course, result in him losing around about $3 to $4 billion per week in foreign exchange revenue.
All right, Dean John Quelch, thank you again for explaining all of that. Of course, we'll probably bring you back on, hopefully maybe with some good news.
Yeah,
but
more insight.
All right.
We're just following this like everyone else. Thank you.